Welcome, everybody. Michael and Taylor here. Team Purple today.
Look, let me just want to clarify. There are 4 colors shirts that we own, and it's just incredibly odd that we tend to coordinate far too often. But it's not. This doesn't happen. We don't text.
No. This is our 4th Facebook Live, 4th episode here. We've talked a little bit about training. We've talked a little bit about life and stress. Today we wanted to talk about probably the elephant in everyone's room, and that's nutrition. And Michael has I know a piece he's going to share shortly, but we really want to get into the heart of mindful eating. It's one of the many broad concepts we teach, one of the first broad concepts we teach to clients who inquire about nutrition. Focusing and being present, that's kind of where we're headed today.
So I thought it would be important to talk about it because clearly it is nearly one of the most important things that's on people's mind when they come through the door. You know, it's some sort of body composition. I want to look better. I want to feel better. And I think we can all understand that it ties directly to a nutritional component, as well as obviously thoughtful training. And I also, as we alluded to in an earlier episode, you know, kind of that third rail of fitness, that lifestyle piece. But the interesting thing is with the nutrition piece, it's so often just give me the answer. Mm-hmm. Like, just tell me what to do. Yep. Well, I need some, give me a meal plan, and I can understand that drive. But I would throw this back as an interesting parallel, at least for us. When somebody comes through the door and they're like, hey, I want to get my fitness on. Yeah, the last thing we would do is just go and grab some PDF file that I got off the interwebs and like handed you some program and said, yeah, let's just go snatch and clean and jerk without having any clue, which is why, what do? Of course, we go through a thoughtful assessment. We figure out what your capabilities are. We learn about you. Why is it any different when it comes to nutrition? Yeah. So I always say that it's a little bit of a frustrating exchange with a new client because they have that just give me the answer expectation, and we always sort of pivot back and say, you know what, let me just kind of show you how we think and our broad values around health, fitness, and longevity. And it turns into a much broader conversation, and hopefully most come around and understand that there's a purpose behind that.
Yeah. So as much as we like answering the question, I always joke, like, I love the question, like, hey coach, is chili healthy? But it's going to involve nuance, and it's going to involve questions and back and forth, much like the coaching relationship that clients experience in the gym. There is never going to be like a template that we slide across the table and be like, this is the Michael and Taylor diet plan. Because that wouldn't take into any consideration what you like to eat, when you like to eat, if you like to cook, and it would just be disingenuous and ultimately probably unsatisfying in the long run, not to even mention unsustainable.
Yep. And I'm going to touch on that too. Let's just also talk about something broad that, paleo is a pretty common thing that's out there, especially in sort of a gym environment potentially. What if somebody comes to your table and you haven't even asked a simple question like, what if they're vegetarian or vegan? Yeah. And you're handing them some like meat, the week of meat. Yeah. I mean, that's such a thoughtless. Yeah. And that's just touch on that and expand upon that as to why it needs to be an understanding and an exchange and a conversation and a learning of what that person's framework is, so that then we can move forward with something that has value long term.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as our it depends, which we always begin every episode with. What we're really trying to get at is that the best plan is the plan that works for you. And now we want to hinge and talk about probably one of the largest considerations, like I mentioned when we kicked off. It's the thing we lead with, and that's mindfulness or building awareness. So how do you become more present? How do you know, essentially, how do you know what's going in your mouth? Because believe it or not, many of us just kind of go through the day and food is the afterthought of like, I wake up in the morning, I know I need to do my daily hygiene, let alone fuel yourself, right? So You may not think of it, but as you might be sitting there yourself, looking back retrospectively at your day thus far, I kind of did blow through lunch, or dinner was just something I grabbed on my way home. Yep. We really want, and even I would argue that the research points to that it almost doesn't even matter what the what is. It's the folks that focus on the what. And that could be a specific plan. That could just be getting breakfast every day. Like, you take any first step, the fact that you're taking a first step indicates future success.
So expand on that a little bit, just so I think people better understand what you're talking about. Because, again, so many people want the full prescription. They want the big plan. They want the answer. And you're talking about just simply taking a mindful first step and continuing that from a consistency standpoint, and then it doesn't matter what that step is. I mean, that might blow some people's minds.
Well, I think we talk about this a lot, Michael and I do, like the foodology, especially in Western cultures, particularly American culture, that things get ranked on a moral almost hierarchy, that like this is better and then this is bad, and what we failed to realize is that just trying to rank those things doesn't increase our presence when we consume them at all. So if I feel like I'm picking good foods, but yet I'm just shoveling them in, and I'm not necessarily keeping in mind, whether I'm sitting and chewing, right? Whether I'm eating distractedly, because all of the gluten-free paleo brownies or gluten-free paleo meal plan in the world doesn't matter if you eat it in front of the TV and eat it to excess, because that's caloric excess, which would be detrimental to an individual who might have like a caloric restriction for weight loss purposes.
Well, and would you say similarly that the biggest, $20,000 Whole Foods bill with organic everything and petted whatever, and like I named my food, and again you're just shoveling it through, you're not chewing it, you're not even digesting it, you're doing it as food. Like I'd rather, like, maybe McDonald's is better than that if I just chew the damn burger.
Well,
that's a bit right. That's
right.
Extreme.
And maybe it's helpful for folks to know that when we talk about chewing, the science behind sitting down and patiently absorbing the nutrients that come from your food. You mentioned organics or whole foods. If you're paying more money to theoretically have a higher quality of food, but you're not consuming it with quality, and that includes the cooking and the preparation and the consuming, like what the bargain grocery store person, you know what I'm saying here, as far as
getting more value, more nutrient value.
Regardless of the economic relationship. So when we talk about raising awareness, you use that word mindful, and it almost connotates like a spiritual. It's not what we're going for. One of our first tips for folks to increase your awareness is to start a food log, or a food journal. And in this, slightly more technologically advanced society, one of the perfect ways, if you're not a journaler or a writer or a logger, is just take a picture of everything that goes in your mouth. Start with a 24-hour period. Say sunrise to sunrise the next day. What did I consume? Snap a picture of it. And then you have a gallery to then go and back and look at and realize, you may look and go, I never realized my breakfast was that small. I never realized I ate something at 2 p.m. every day. Because that little handful of nuts, or that little sneaky snack there from your cube mate, like, those things we don't always think about until, I'm going to take a picture of this. Yeah. And then you may find yourself not eating it because you took a picture of it.
Well, and I mean, exactly what he's talking about. I can't think of actually any situation of a client that I've had an opportunity to work with on a nutritional basis that hasn't logged their food, that hasn't essentially come to the table with their observation and awareness of what they see from their own food log, which becomes the path of our first step together.
Right.
From them saying, man, I didn't realize that I snack like every day at 2:00, or I'm like hungry and then it's like, okay, and then we just start peeling it back, because in the end, it's not about me looking at their food log and saying, well, yeah, you shouldn't do this, and this is bad for you, and blah blah blah. It's like, the first conversation is like, so
what do you see?
What do you see?
Yeah,
what do you think?
Yep.
And they always have insights, and it's always good insights. And that's where that coaching relationship, it's a support structure. It's not a dictatorship. It's not a here's what you do. It's like, let's work together. Let's find a plan. It's great.
So if I'm becoming more aware, Michael, and I'm starting to get a grasp on my presence and my mindfulness, and I want to start caring more and doing something about it, what are some action steps? We talked about chewing. What's, maybe flesh that out a little bit and talk about I'm eating lunch normally on the fly. What's one thing I could do with my lunch to change things up?
And I'll come back to his point where, like, I don't even necessarily care what the lunch is. I mean, we will, and I would, but I'd want to make the conditions around the lunch be a part of the rest and digest part of the equation, right? If everything is fight and flight, then the food just has no purpose. And if you're chewing while responding to emails, you're not really eating anything. Right. So if we can't find a detached environment to actually eat, and in a perfect world, or a more ideal world, I should say, prepare our own food, because digestion starts even in the preparation part of the whole process relative to how the body works. Like, that's where I would start. That'd be my first in. Like, can we just find some quiet time? Yeah. Can we actually not eat at your desk? Can you go outside and sit at the tables that your work provides you? Can you not find 30 minutes in your day to have your own lunch?
Yeah.
You know? And if they can't, which literally I've had conversations with clients that's a stressful exchange, then boy, do we need to talk about that and figure that out. And do they need to understand, like, value, like, what do I say that I value? And my God, that really illustrates that, like, my life is being completely driven by my job.
Yeah.
And wow, geez, let me think about, and maybe we have to go down that, and it's, you know, and we're not even talking about food for a month as we start to, you know, so.
It's, yeah, I mean, it is funny how we always look at ourselves in light of, like, if I look back over 7 days and Michael goes, you know, hey, how was it? I'm gonna go. I'm maybe gonna blot out the majority of the occurrences that weren't great, right? So I build my awareness. I realize all of a sudden that I thought I was a guy that got breakfast every day, and then I realize I don't get breakfast every day, and I thought I was a 1 cup of coffee, and I'm kind of like a half a pot coffee, and before you know it, your mindfulness now starts to drive some of the action.
Right.
We looked at lunch. Michael talked about, you know, sitting. I think one thing I'd like to touch on too, and I'm guilty of this, it's in the evenings, guys. Try as you may, more nights than not, low tech. Especially for individuals we worked with who have a body compositional goal. You get into that later time in the evening, and you kind of just want to put the Netflix show on or pop a movie in or catch up on something, and you're scrolling email while you're trying to eat dinner, or even if there's a show on, you're liable to consume more than you might normally, right? And not be attentive to the satiety triggers or the feelings of fullness that come from just sitting and dialoguing across from another person, which has a whole other host of health benefits.
I mean, that would be a fascinating, like, 2 days back to back. Like, day one, just do your normal, like, I'm watching Facebook, scrolling through while I'm eating my food. Day two, it's like I'm sitting across from my significant other, and we're dialoguing while we're eating. And and if it were the same food, same everything, same conditions, perfect world, I'd be curious to see, portioning, and, like, how fast somebody might get through. Like, I used to be like a speed eater.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and I find like, I have slowed things down, and that's these are, now you're getting into sort of like, what's the word? But I mean, kind of these more specific habits sort of structures. Right. But you can see these are, it's more of a principle-based structure versus like a dogmatic, like, here. And notice that we haven't even talked about one food item, really.
Yeah, we've tried. Yeah, no,
we've tried
not to.
And they probably want it, but sorry, that's too bad.
So we've mentioned a lot of things. We've talked about presence and mindfulness. I hope that in our number of examples, breakfast, lunch, dinner, that you grab onto one of the things and try and implement it. Don't go saying that you're going to do it all. You don't need to. You don't need to throw on your mindfulness hat for everything, because, as Michael mentioned clearly, for some of us it's not a reality. Do it where you can. Make those small steps where you know you'll have success in making some small steps, and then link together some consistency. Maybe it's taking some pictures over the next few days. Maybe it's writing out a log. Maybe it's going and finding a quiet place to do lunch or to do a meal, and lowering the tech and the technology influence over mealtime. Try some of those out. Let us know how they go.
Or get a support structure. I mean, sometimes that really can make the difference.
For sure.
I mean, having somebody to help guide you through the process, having somebody to dialogue with. Sometimes, as we know, I mean, that significant other maybe isn't the best. That independent third party can tell you some hard truths and expose some things that you might not be willing to discuss with somebody who's even you're right and close next to you. So
yeah, and if you're looking for maybe that third party or someone who's not as partial and intimately involved with, you know, the meal planning and how you guys budget for groceries and stuff, I mean, reach out to us. We're always available. Yeah. We've placed an email. You'll find it in the comments below this video. You know it by now. It's live, Live, at mspfitness.com. It's a great place to talk about the details of not only this episode, but any episode, and maybe send us suggestions for future shows. What do you want to see? What do you want us to talk about? What do you want to learn?
Great.
Yeah, well, it was a pleasure talking to you guys today. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you guys next time.
Take care.